Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles McLennan, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. We're talking about Houdini and swing and a miss on that
Yeah, you were wrong.
Yeah,
Hold on a second there. There's a backstory to it, but apparently he died of appendicitis, but they say it could be from sudden blows of the amateur boxer Gordon Whitehead. So the guy had punched him in the stomach a bunch of times as a trick or something like that. So it might have been side effects or, ramifications of one of his tricks of a boxer tuning him up. So
what kind of magic trick is that? That you just get tuned up by a boxer? And unless he's standing there and doesn't
know where you're reading
flinch.
this, Noodles.
Okay. I'm sure you read everything on the internet. It's really true. So I don't know. You want to blame somebody? It's Chris Edwards, our producer at TSN, who's a dear friend of mine. He's like, I think he died doing this.
I think you're right. I mean, people are writing in, Monica tweeting in, saying the guys on Overdrive, how could they not know about Houdini's extremely famous appendix? It can't be that famous if the three of us have never heard about this guy's appendix. Because I thought the same thing, Noodles. I have some sort of mental image of this guy getting kicked into the East River in New York.
Yeah, in a barrel, trying to, and they fish him out of there. Now, depends on where you read, but what I'm reading and all these articles and how did Houdini die, and apparently it's suspect. People are they think he was murdered, all of these things.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I like magicians. You mentioned David Blaine. That guy was, when you watch that stuff, when he's in New York City and just looking at somebody and he says the name of somebody, or he'll go, look at your left hand and the person's name is written on the hand. That's weird stuff.
Yeah.
And you see all these magicians that go into NFL locker rooms.
Yeah, those are great.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And they'll go, okay, you put up your hand and tell me a number you're thinking of. The guy, and he tells it. It's something's weird about these guys. It is magical. Not that I don't believe in magic. I just think it's really cool to watch.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't know how they do it, but I
saw one.
I don't know. How do you train
what do you think
for
it
something
is?
like that? I don't have an answer. Obviously, if I did, I would be doing it. Why would I be on this show if I could be a great magician? I'd be in Vegas right now.
Really?
Yeah, I think those guys make a fortune. How much would David Blaine be worth? Wow. He's got to be worth tens of millions of dollars, wouldn't he? Yeah, if not, because he's a legit act that people pay big money for his services. So yeah, I think if you're doing something to that level where NFL teams are bringing you in, you're not doing that for free. That's big money.
Big time. But didn't we have a big debate about David Copperfield and we had Berkey come on?
Yeah, we were talking about Copperfield, and I don't remember the context of it. Him in Vegas and how big he was in Vegas. I think maybe that's what the discussion revolved around, because he was retiring after 20 years on the Strip or something. And we had Burke on, and it was a conversation we were having prior. It was one of those, hey, he's on the line. So I thought, all right, well, Berkey's a guy that's been around the world. He's been to Vegas. I'm sure he's seen David Copperfield. And we asked him, and he wouldn't even play. It was just.
No. But Noodles, to your point, it would have been so much better if that's how Houdini died. Who's the guy? Siegfried and Roy?
Yeah.
You're how did he die? Well, he got eaten by one of his lions. You'd be yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee, didn't he get eaten by?
No, not Crocodile
Dundee. No. That's the movie.
That's a movie.
Crocodile Dundee is all good.
Who am I talking about?
You're
talking about
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin.
He got eaten by.
No, he didn't get eaten. He got stung.
No, he got stung by a shark. And there's a comedian, which you should never make fun of death, but there's a comedian out there going all the crocodiles are going, can you see that the shark got him and we didn't even get him? It's.
I know. I don't even know if it was a shark, Noodles. I think it was a stingray. I think.
Stingray.
Really?
I think he got stung in the chest. Which is
that's not as good.
So sad, but it's still
obviously there's nothing funny about it. But I hear what you're saying in terms of the predictability.
Yeah, it's appropriate.
Yeah, if you're in a barrel and you get thrown into the river.
Niagara Falls.
You're kind of you're I think Houdini might have done that. I think he might have done the barrel over.
I think
the
we
falls.
all.
You're right. He did.
I think he did.
Every magician we've ever thought of, we're just like, that's Houdini, and it's probably not. It's a guy, Rick Smith, that walked a wire, a tightrope from building to building, and
but
it's that's Houdini.
I think he did. I think he went over the falls. Houdini.
The Houdini Hall of Fame is in Niagara Falls.
Oh, it's in Niagara Falls.
But so maybe there must be a reason.
That could be completely coincidental. That doesn't confirm that the guy did it.
I'll investigate.
It could be completely coincidental.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. The Ottawa Senators back in action tonight. They got to get one tonight. The Islanders are struggling, man. The Islanders have not been off to a good start. We saw what happened a couple of days ago in Buffalo. You were calling that game, Noodles, where it didn't go well for Ottawa. I believe Artem Zub is going to return tonight.
Yep.
And that's a big addition to the lineup. I mean, he's a really good piece. You've talked about him a lot over the years. I mean, he really kind of solidifies and stabilizes their top four. To chat about it, we're joined now by our TSN Hockey analyst. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's Marc Methot. What's happening, Meth?
Guys, a couple things. So I'm hanging on the, I guess, behind there on the line listening as I come in. And you guys are talking about Steve Irwin. Noodles, for some reason, assumes it's a shark bite. I think everybody under the sun knows that it was a stingray to the chest. Thank you for the correction, Hayes.
Right.
And then about 30 some odd minutes ago, I'm hearing you pigeons talking about Vegas and the draft and how I guess, the whole front office is ruthless and how they're stringent with their trades, Marc-Andre Fleury, blah, blah, blah. But you never once referenced the fact that they plucked me out of Ottawa and you never considered my feelings. So all I'm saying is
apologies.
I was very happy in Ottawa until they plucked me only to move me immediately. And I can still remember Kelly McCrimmon calling me right after they picked me. And there was no, hey, Mass, how you doing? Glad to have you on board. It wasn't that. It was almost immediately, what are your 10 team no trade? Give me your list now. So you're right. That is how they operate, and it's probably why they're good. I just don't know how long that's going to last for, because eventually players talk, and, they might have different feelings. Anyway, I'm done my rant.
Yeah, I hear you, man, because you're right. Like, there are references, you being one of them, Mark, that we talk about all the time, and we advertise as being uber positive, like, hey, wasn't that great when they totally sewered that guy and they got rid of him because they didn't like him anymore or didn't think that he was usable anymore?
Right?
Yeah, it's tough when you're on the wrong side of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. It's part of the business, but it is true though. I mean, and you guys have touched on it a little bit too with other players. And Noodles mentioned the grass not always being greener on the other side if you do decide to chase the bag, and it's like, at the end of the day, if it's not a good fit, like I ended up in Dallas after Vegas plucked me, and I was there for 2 years. And granted, I got hurt, but it wasn't a seamless transition. Like my knees kind of buckled a bit early, but they had me with Klingberg on the top pairing when I got there. There was no chemistry. Then they put me down with Heiskanen, and we played pretty well until I got hurt. But again, it's not easy going to a new team, and we're seeing that with Linus Ullmark here in Ottawa right now.
Yes, well, that's it, man. I mean, he's trying to find his footing, and It feels like it's probably unfair to him to apply, past issues with goaltending, but it's always a part of the conversation in that city. And I know you and Noodles, you guys are watching it up close and personal, and you know every single detail of the team. But I can tell you, as an outsider, that's generally where the outside world looks when it starts the conversation with Ottawa. It's like, are they going to get stops? And now they've committed to Ullmark. They acquired him. I like the move. They gave him the term. They gave him the money. I think that made a lot of sense. But it better work. Like, if Ullmark doesn't play like, I think, a top 10 goalie, I really question whether or not they can make the playoffs.
Right, but and Noodles might know, clearly will know more about this than I do when it comes to the goaltending thing. But, I mean, if you look, you referenced it there, Hayes, with Ottawa being a bit of a goalie graveyard. I'm paraphrasing. Cam Talbot, Philip Gustafson, both in the top 10 right now in the league, both former Ottawa Senators in recent memory. So I guess, and I know the numbers are out there, and it was very clear last year, at least with Korpisalo, that that costed the Ottawa Senators quite a few games, and I understand that. But at what point do we stop pointing the fingers at the goaltenders in the revolving door here and start focusing maybe on the structure, on the defense core? Like Noodles, you've watched a ton of Sens games. Like with regards to Ullmark. And obviously there are a lot of variables, new city, new atmosphere, all that stuff. It takes time to get your footing. But, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. It takes time to get, for me, it's about chemistry with your defenseman. how they like to defend. So, for example, Matthew, if you're boxing out, you push to a certain way. You try and if you're going to block a shot, you go maybe short side instead of far side. Like a goalie stops the puck behind the net. You get to know the defenseman and how he wants it set up on his backhand, forehand. Like there's just things that take time to settle in. The injury didn't help. What helps with all of this, though, and this is what I said on Ottawa airwaves the other night, and I wholeheartedly believe this. Linus Ullmark, the most he's ever played in a season is 49 games. Yeah. So you signed him, he's going to make $8.25 million, yes. But your number 2 or your 1A, which is Anton Forsberg, let's say Ullmark gets to 55. Somebody else has to play 30. So, it's not a guy like this isn't Luongo McLennan where I got 12 games or whatever, Kiprusoff McLennan. This is like, because Ullmark's not a standalone guy. He's more of a tandem guy that they're going to morph into a one. So to me, he's finding his footing. I really like him. Like, I think he's got a great demeanor. I think he's a big goaltender with terrific feet. I think he's a good goaltender that just has to find his footing with that team. We've seen flashes of it, but we've also seen some leaky play from the team in front of him and some leaky goals from him, too. Like, that's like he has to own some of that, too. So I just want to give him a little bit more runway, 10, 15 starts where it's like, oh, that's Artem Zub. This is what Jake Sanderson likes to do. And, yes, the team has to play better in front of him. But it doesn't hurt that Anton Forsberg has 2 shutouts in his last 3 starts, and he's going to play tonight because I would start him,
So, Noodles, that answers my – I was just going to ask you, and I realized it's not my job to be asking questions right now, but I think with regards to tonight, would you have started – would you in fact have went with Anton Forsberg? Because this is a contentious topic right now. A lot of people want Ullmark in there to get reps and to try to find a rhythm. So if you're looking – maybe projecting out a couple months from now and playoffs being an issue in Ottawa over the last 6 or 7 years, I should say, you don't think maybe you got to start forcing him to play in some games here and just try to find it? Or like what's the story there?
I can understand the logic with that, but I believe they've got a busy week. So you're looking at, ahead. This Islander start might be decent where, Ottawa's back in Boston. I think it is Saturday, right?
Yep.
So then,
and then Toronto.
And then Toronto. So I think Ullmark's going to play both those games. So for me, I think it's Forsberg tonight and gives them a chance to win, and you get Ullmark ready for Saturday, Tuesday against 2 really, tough divisional games. And, an out-of-division game is the Islanders. So that's my thought process, is looking at the schedule instead of just letting him run and playing him the next 3 in a row. He's going to play 2 in a row, I believe, which will be Saturday and Tuesday.
Well, you just went nuclear on my talking point for the first intermission, so I thank you for that.
That boy, reference it. I love it with Marc Methot. And, there's a lot going on, obviously, in the country. You're focused on Ottawa. We're focused a lot on Toronto. But Edmonton blew a game again last night. And Evan Bouchard is in the crosshairs in that market after one play in particular through the neutral zone. I'm sure you guys saw it. I think you know what I'm referencing, where he just
Eichel's goal.
Eichel's goal, and he didn't read the play correctly. I think he would argue he had his man, but still it got ugly, and he just looked lazy on the play. And Bouchard's a guy who put up such a phenomenal season last year. He's also the quarterback of that power play that has been so great for years, and it's been awful this year. So if he's not putting up points and the power play is not great, and defensively he looks bad, that is a nightmare for a defenseman, isn't it, Matt? Especially in a market like that with high hopes.
I know, and it's funny because Canadian markets always have one guy, right, like the scapegoat, and it's typically I don't know why this is. It's often a goaltender, but it's always usually a goalie or a defenseman. It just feels that way because that's your last line of defense, right? So when you're watching a highlight and you're on the wrong side of it, it's usually the defenseman that made a mistake or the goaltender letting in a soft one. So this is going to sound like a bit of a hot take, but when I watched him last year, and I know he lit it up in the playoffs, he was fantastic. I was cheering on Edmonton. Believe it or not, as an analyst, I still think I wanted to see a Canadian team win, and I think I want McDavid to do well, right? But watching Bouchard, I couldn't help but think, okay, this just feels like it's a one and done. I know people are going to roll their eyes right now, especially in Edmonton, but I never felt like he'd consistently keep that pace up, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. I mean, it was an insane point pace. Everything just seemed to click. Everything he shot was getting to the net. The odd one was going in. He was a stud. And now all of a sudden, the honeymoon phase of that postseason wears off. You're into the start of the season again, and it's just not clicking. Now what do you do? And then as a defenseman, I feel like you tend to get in your own head a little bit when stuff like that happens. Now, I can't speak on point production. I was never known as a point guy, but I've seen it. I've been around it. I remember playing with Eric quite a bit too with Carlson. They go up. There's a lot of ups and downs, and when you start getting out of your rhythm a little bit, things start going south. Now all of a sudden, you're giving the fan base a reason to point the finger at you. It was Cody Ceci before. We had Cody Ceci here in the past. Was Zaitsev a couple years ago as well, and now they're obviously leaning on Hamonic a little bit. And I'm not trying to draw parallels between those players. Bouchard's on another level, of course. But I think for me, it just comes down to results, and that's what people want. So if he starts getting into that rhythm again on the power play, eventually when you get a healthy McDavid and all that, I just think that people will slowly forget about it. But that's not something that I'm ever envious of. Being in that position again in a Canadian market sucks. There's a lot of pressure, and when things start going south, it's really hard to get out of that hole because people just cling to that. So I feel for the guy, but again, it's a result-driven league, and in Canada, you're under the microscope.
Well, I wanted to follow up on, this Bouchard chat and actually draw a parallel, and it's not fair, but like Erik Karlsson. And what I mean is they're point producers, but their demeanor. Like there were times that like Erik Karlsson, you could be down 3 goals. You look at him on the bench. There's a smile going on, or he's got to chew in, and like a lot of times, like you know what he was like. Like it just that was Eric. Like there was no. It was a very casual approach with Eric, and I said this. I think Hayes. I said it to you and yesterday. I was talking about Bouchard. Is when you're not producing, all of a sudden people start to pick apart. The person, the player. Yes. So Bouchard, he's not producing. Well, Bouchard looks like he's casual on the best of days. In the playoffs last year, he was curling, dragging guys, the last guy back, and it was working. And people were like, God, he's got ice in his veins. This year, the first shot, if you go back to the first shot of the season for the Edmonton Oilers, Evan Bouchard, it was a D-to-D pass in the offensive zone on the blue line. He whiffed it. And it sent Mark Scheifele in on a breakaway. That was how Stuart Skinner started his season, was a breakaway because Bouchard, it looked like he couldn't have cared less to cradle that puck at the blue line. So, I guess what it is, when you have a guy who's so casual, in Toronto, it's William Nylander. Nylander's got fire, but he plays the same way. When it doesn't go for him, people are like, geez, he doesn't care, or look at that route that he took or whatever. With Evan Bouchard, I witnessed it last night. To me, I thought it was a poor read. I thought Jeff Skinner could have helped out with that process, too. He stopped skating.
Yeah, he did. It was weird.
But ultimately, people are like, look at Evan Bouchard and his effort as he floats
Which
in.
it was floating.
Oh, my God. He might as well just taken his gear off right there.
It was pretty wild, man. It was pretty wild.
But Matt, like you saw it up close and personal. Erik Karlsson, there were nights where, like, this guy looks like he, didn't care about playing hockey that night. And he would try a saucer pass through the middle, get picked off, and like, ho-hum, to the bench you go. He had fire. But when it's not working for these top players or for guys who can create, what do you do to get out of it? Like, what can Evan Bouchard show to the fans that I do care, but it's just not working for me?
Well, the only thing I'll say with Eric, at least, is that despite his demeanor, he's always got that Swedish snuss in his mouth. He's chewing. He's got this like gunslinger style attitude to him, but his bounce back was always there. And I think that's the difference between the great players and the guys that, maybe get a little success one year, take another dip, like they're less consistent. Eric was so competitive. Like all he wanted to do, well, first of all, he only ever wanted the puck on his stick. Like if I took one too many shots any given period, I'd hear about it either on the bench, we'd get into a big FU, or it'd happen in the, behind the scenes in the locker room. And I'd hear about it. We'd go back and forth. It was relentless. He just wanted the puck all the time. Even if he laid an egg the game prior, you wouldn't know it. He showed up the next game, very calm demeanor, maybe a little more focused potentially, but at the end of the day, he was still himself, and he didn't have to change very much. So with Bouchard, and I think you kind of touched on it there, it's like I think they are different mentally, right? Like you've got two different demeanors there. Bouchard, maybe not as confident as a guy like Erik Karlsson, at least not in his prime. And with Bouchard right now, it's like, just get back down to basics. Don't overdo it. That toe drag that you referenced at the start of the season that ended up with Scheifele on a breakaway, maybe eliminate that out of your game next game. Just keep it very simple. Slap it around on the power play. Maybe you get a secondary assist early on in the game. You start feeling really good about yourself and you move forward. So again, it's a mindset. And at the NHL, with so much parity, I mean, there's the difference between each team. I mean, it's negligible at this point now. I mean, you could lose any given night. So you're not going to get an easy game is what I'm trying to say. So he just has to just dial it back. Make the simple play. Eventually you start feeling yourself again, and then things just kind of come and start happening. So I like I mentioned earlier to finish my point, all players are different. You know, you've got a different environment, and again, Canadian team, it's very hard to get out of that hole when you're that team scapegoat, and he's playing almost 25 minutes a night so far this season. He's playing more than anybody else on that team. It's going to be really hard because you mentioned it as well, Noodles. Every mistake now that he's going to make is going to get magnified. Some pigeon online is going to clip that thing. They're going to post it on Twitter. It's going to get ratioed to oblivion. You guys know what I'm talking about. That's the game now. And so I feel for him, but at the end, it's like, you know, he's not going to get any sympathy from his fan base. He has to figure it out himself.
With Marc Methot, staying on the blue line, moving further west, Quinn Hughes the other night registered his 300th career assist, third fastest defenseman all time to do that, which is just remarkable. And you look at his numbers, like the last 4 years, he had 68 points, 76. Last year he had 92. This year he's leading the team in points. He's got 12 points in 11 games, 10 assists already. I mean, he's one of Norris. He's one of. It just feels like Makar kind of hangs over this conversation. But how close is he to actually being on par, or maybe surpassing Makar? Like, how would you compare Quinn Hughes? Or how do you have that conversation, Quinn Hughes versus Cale Makar?
Yeah, we're now you're in the elite defenseman conversation, and the changes are a little different. Obviously, not as tall. He's not as maybe, and I don't want to say physically imposing because obviously Cale Makar isn't necessarily that either. But they are different, and but they share a lot of commonalities, right? Like the way they straddle the blue line, never look down at the puck, and I always tell that to minor hockey parents when we're talking about defensemen to model your game after, right? And like Quinn Hughes is perfect for that. He's your perfect player, prototypical offensive-minded defenseman, and leads the team in points by a country mile right now, plays 25-plus minutes a night. I think for me, when you're looking at the makeup of your Norris-style defenseman, at least historically speaking, because apparently playing defense doesn't always matter if you want a nomination, but I think for me with Tim right now in his game, just maturity, right? Like he's going to continue to get better. He's playing with Roenick right now. For me, with all these guys that we always talk about, all the top-tier defensemen, they none of them lack confidence. They all move the puck better than almost anybody on their team. And I want to drag Jake Sanderson into this conversation because I get to watch him every night here in Ottawa. These guys are just on another level, and they see the game different from everybody else. I think with a player like that right now, we're talking Hughes, like with his ceiling, I honestly don't think we've seen it yet. And, it sounds hyperbolic a little bit. You think, come on, Matt, like, how many more points does a man need to get to that status? But I think for me with him, they're right on par with each other. Him and Makar, yeah, sure, they have some differences. Makar, little lengthier, he's got a good long stride. Quinn Hughes, though, excellent skater, dependable, smart in his own end, really good on little exits, pop plays, nice little movement on the offensive blue line. These are the guys that bring people into the building. So, again, I'm going to be keeping my eye on him. It's early. They've only played 11 games, but he's already leading his team in points. I mean, what's not to like there?
No kidding, man. He just turned 25. And
Insane.
So is Makar. Like, they're both, they're just in their mid-20s.
And that's
Makar's
not your prime
got
as a D-man.
23 points.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Makar's
crazy.
got 23 points in 13
Incredible.
games.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, they're so good. All right, Meth, enjoy the game tonight, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
You got it. Thanks for having me, boys.
Marc Methot joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, third fastest ever is an incredible statistic. Like for an assist number like that, 300 assists for Quinn Hughes. And they look different. They operate differently. Like Makar, and they literally shoot differently. Makar's right-handed, Hughes is left-handed. I find Hughes is just so cerebral And you talk about no pulse. Like, he will make moves on the blue line. He will straddle the blue line unlike anybody else. And he's kind of a rover out there. Like, he's all over the ice. And Makar is just so powerful and so fast that it's scary.
I think Makar's a better skater than him as far as, like, straight out powerful. But if you look at it, Quinn Hughes might be in tight spaces a little bit more elusive.
Yes.
Like, just really kind of stop, cut back. Like, I look at Makar. I think Makar looks at Nathan McKinnon and goes, I like how you skate. I like how explosive you are. Like, some of the things that McKinnon does, Makar has, like, thrown into his game and watching create space for himself. Makar's got great edges. He's got that 10-2 where he does, like, he'll change. But for Quinn Hughes, I think he's got different paces. Like, he'll slow down the play. He'll fake. He's got these little like soft little plays.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're different in their elusive.
They do look very different.
Qualities.
It's great to have because they are really so different. Yet, like, Hughes is just so silky smooth. Like, he is so much fun to watch play. They both play 1 million minutes. Like, they're both playing 24, 25 minutes a night, and they're both around the same age, and they're both in the West. You know, it's too bad. Like, a lot of people in the East don't get to see them play that much. But those are the two best defensemen in the league right now. Like, that to me is not really up for debate.
I'm just looking back at that draft. He goes 7th.
Who else was in that
first?
draft? I don't.
2018. Buffalo takes Rasmus Dahlin.
Dahlin went
a pretty
first
interesting
overall.
group that goes ahead of him. Like, you could really argue he probably should go first.
Well,
say it.
So I can read you them. Dahlin goes first. Svechnikov goes to Carolina. Probably do that one over. Kotkaniemi goes to Montreal.
That would be a do-over.
Brady Tkachuk, I think they're happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Barrett Hayden goes to Arizona.
Obviously, Hughes.
Zadina.
This is the one that was loud because he went to Michigan, and people in Detroit could not believe they didn't take Hughes. Yeah. I remember that. I remember vividly Red Wing fans being like, "What are you doing? He's up the street.
Right
He's at Michigan." And they're like, "No, Philip Zadina." That's a miss, man.
That's the guy in San Jose now, right? Isn't he?
That's crushing. Like, you take Zadina. He's not even in the league anymore. Oh, I guess he came back over. Yeah. Now, I think he's playing in Switzerland. He is.
And then
he didn't get Zadina didn't get a job this year. He had to go back to Europe.
Bouchard 10, and then Dobson goes 12.
That's a great defensive core.
Man, that Dobson's a player.
He's been and Dahlin's been really good.
Yeah,
like Dahlin's been outstanding. But
I think they'd probably take him.
I think at the time it was justified. Like, he was a pillar to post first overall guy. It's easy to look back and say you should have taken Quinn Hughes. They weren't going to. But Hughes is phenomenal. All right, Luke Willson coming up. Owen Wilson is on the clock. They need to figure this out. And O's not here today. Luke, without O recently, has not been in a good place. His head has been in a blender. So we'll see who he's got tonight. We'll start teeing up Week 10. We'll do that next.
If you smell what the
Quinn Wilson
is cooking.
All right. Halftime adjustments were made. But
shout out Baker Mayfield.
Luke Willson in studio. There it is. No pro athlete salute. I guess you and Noodles can do a pro
Noodles,
athlete
what's
salute.
up, my guy?
There you go.
How
That's
you
two
doing,
pro
buddy?
athletes.
Once again, Noodles.
Yeah.
We got to give him a shout out.
He's
undefeated on the year.
He made the right call.
All
His instincts were kicking in on Monday night.
All he needs to say is, I have a little bit of concern, and that's he says that again, I'm changing my pick.
As you should, and you guys will be on the clock tonight. This is a big one because Jonas made the call earlier today. Jonas is saying this. This is basically John King on CNN. Yep. You're looking into the counties, different counties in the AFC North. He is. Like, he's got his big board.
What a reference.
Very timely.
He's all over the counties in the AFC North, and he's a believer that if the Bengals win tonight, they're going to win the AFC North.
And do you want to tell him why?
There's
well, because
I would
of
like
the scheduling.
To hear this. I would like to hear
Go
this.
ahead, John
I just
King.
looked at the schedule, and I say they
I'm-
play Baltimore tonight. They
Yep.
win, they're 5-5. Baltimore will be 6-4.
Yes?
And then Cincinnati plays Pittsburgh twice.
You get both those.
Get
you're
those,
in the
you're
hunt,
in.
man.
Listen.
Right there.
Which is crazy considering the way the season started for this team.
Crazy. It's what's also crazy. I couldn't agree with that more. This tonight is
We're
a
on the
huge
same
one.
page.
You
Yes.
have to win tonight. If
You
you're
have
Bengals.
to. For this to happen, you
Yes,
have to win tonight.
You have to.
But what's crazy, too, is that if they win tonight, which is a big if, we all know the line's a little crazy, But somehow everyone keeps talking, myself included, saying, oh, Ravens, Chiefs, collision course. And I do believe that. But then I also sit there and say, collision course, if the Ravens lose tonight, they're 6-4.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are undefeated, haven't lost a game since 2020.
Right.
I don't even know what 2023.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, and you know what? There is like one quarterback where it's like if he goes into a game with Mahomes, I'm like, I kind of think he might be able to beat him. Everybody else, I'm
you
like,
think that's Lamar?
no, I think
Burrow.
that's Burrow.
That's
Burrow.
the thing.
He's
Historically,
the
it's
one
been Joe
guy.
Burrow.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see him beating him. Everybody else, I'm like, I can't pick against Mahomes.
I totally agree. Unless it's Baker Mayfield to cover the spread, but I digress.
Yes, man. I love Baker, dude. I'm a Baker guy now.
That's tough.
But
I love Baker.
it is really strange for me because obviously we have the pick tonight. I'm looking at this thing. I looked at the division, and it's funny, like, as an analyst now, I really need to, like, hey, don't follow the trends. Like, watch the games, understand the games. And I still do believe that the Ravens have the ability to win a Super Bowl this year. But it's very, very hard for me to sit here and compare them to the Chiefs and be like, a couple weeks ago we're asking, hey, are the Ravens better than the Chiefs? And the answer is no.
It can't be. Exactly. No one can be, even Detroit. I'm sorry, I can't say that for you.
Absolutely
that
not.
You're better yet. And you may have been playing better. Your numbers look great. Offensively, the Detroit Lions are a juggernaut. So are the Ravens. They are putting up staggering offensive numbers. Kansas City is 8-0, and they look like they're just trying to figure things out.
The most complete team in the NFL as
well.
well.
You know what the crazy thing about Kansas City is that they are bullying teams. And that's what impresses me, dude, is that I think other teams are like, man, I got to go fight with these guys.
Yes.
And then if for whatever reason it turns into a game where it's like, actually, we're going to run up the score, Mahomes is like, let's rock.
For sure.
You want to party that way? We can party that way. Like,
We'll
they can
win,
beat
yeah.
you in any possible style you want to play.
What was fun for me to watch on that Thursday, beyond the spread stuff, because this actually helped you, but all of a sudden they're down 7. And you kind of sit there and you think, okay, they're down 7. Like, the Bucs are rumbling here. And you think Mahomes is going to, like, let this thing loose. And I loved this drive. It was the second drive, I think, or maybe the first for them in the third quarter, but they were down 7 because the Bucs went down and scored. And it was like, okay, watch this. Kareem Hunt.
Run.
Bully ball.
Yes.
And you don't kind of associate that with Kansas City, but now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my, like I'm watching this and my mind is exploding because in the rain, Arrowhead's a grass field. I know they're at home, obviously have that, but it's not like it's a beautiful turf field. I mean, I prefer grass, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, hey, you want to play muddy downhill football? We'll play that. Oh, you want to play crazy catch game? Well, guess what? We got D-Hop now.
Well, and like we don't have our best receiver. We don't have our best running back. Cool.
No problem.
We'll just plug in Juju.
No problem.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Jack
No,
goes
great.
home,
You know what I
bring
mean?
Kareem
Yes,
Hunt
but
in. I
even
know, man.
imagine
They bully teams right now.
prepping for this team and also defense. So you got Mahomes, you got the whole offense, you got Andy Reid, and then defensively, Steve Spagnuolo and what he runs there with Chris Jones, McDuffie, and the whole cast really is all hands on deck from a scheme standpoint. If you're an offense, and then also, say what you want about him off the field, but Harrison Butker, I mean, I'm sure he had a great election night.
Oh,
you know
yes,
what I'm saying?
he did. He definitely did.
But this man can make kicks.
Yes, he can. He's more dialed in than Justin Tucker is right now.
Yes. And the next thing I'd say to push that envelope of what I found very cool about that Thursday night game was there was a brief moment on the broadcast, and it was at the end of the game, and they go to Mahomes, and he got the ball back. There might have been 26, 27 seconds left. And he's sitting there, and he's counting seconds, and I would assume he was also counting yards. And one of my biggest gripes, and you've heard me say this about Dak, and it's not just Dak, it's a ton of quarterbacks, but it's like now you have a quarterback that's not only that dynamic, but in situational football, which I beat to a dead horse here, he's counting like, okay, we're going to get Butker a shot. We got it, which they didn't, but he's got to get to, they'll tell him, the 45 or whatever his yard line is, and that's where we're kicking from. Now he's looking at the clock. Okay, and the best guys know, okay, a quick out takes 6 seconds. Okay, if we go here, we got 2 timeouts. This is going to take 9 off the clock. There's 27 left. Like, how do I want to try and shape this thing where we can get Butker a kick? Now, it didn't work, but when you've got a quarterback that can play like he does, both in a scheme and off schedule, and can understand every situation, it is wildly, wildly hard to beat.
Yet, when you're talking about like awards, and we're at the half takeaway point right now, and I know you're on Jay, talking about this last night. I don't think Mahomes would be in the top 5.
It's crazy.
He would be. Get out of here.
Well, but he is based on who he is, what he represents, you take Mahomes off Kansas City, you're like, they can't win.
But that's the thing.
Yes.
Plug in, I don't know, pick who's the average quarterback in the NFL. I don't know, Baker Mayfield. Put him on the Chiefs right now. Are they 8-0?
They're probably still 6-2. Like, that's the thing. They're so good. They're so deep. They're not 8-0. And they're not. They're probably not winning a Super Bowl.
5-3. They're 4-4.
But are the Ravens aren't 6-3 if you put the average quarterback in Baltimore?
Fair.
Yet, I look at it, and I was going over it today, trying to decide on who I would give the MVP to. I think I'd give it to Josh Allen at the halfway.
Yeah. Stop.
Here's why I would answer
Stop.
that. Here's why I say that.
Stop. Hey.
He's thrown 2 interceptions, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But here's why. He doesn't have the weaponry that the other teams do. He doesn't have it. Kansas City still has Travis Kelce and a more superior defense and a better coach. In Baltimore, Lamar's numbers are off the charts. They are staggering how good they are. Derrick Henry's the best and most dominant running back in the league. Bar none.
1A, 1B. Saquon,
okay.
Yes.
I'll grant you Saquon.
Totally. I see what you're saying.
It's Saquon or Derrick.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I agree.
Allen doesn't have anyone at the respective position
that
is in
no
the
one
top
else
5 or anything close to it. And I think because that speaks to his importance. So, that's why I would put him at the top.
This award to me it's so interesting because when you phrase it like that, I agree. But then it's like the numbers matter. And I know on Jay last night, I threw another name out there, and the numbers aren't going to be there. And not to the same argument, but I look at Jared Goff, and I say, does he not deserve a sniff?
He definitely does.
Because let's take the Green Bay game. And this is an argument I would paint for Jared Goff. Their defense in Detroit is not good. Now, I know they just got Zadarius Smith. That's a great pickup. But you look at the Green Bay game, it just happened. They were outgained. The Detroit Lions were outgained by 150 yards. And won by 10. Mm-hmm. Now, there was the pick 6 that obviously helped. But my point here is Jared Goff is playing at a level that's basically plugging any sort of defensive issues they have because he's the most efficient man in the NFL right now and has been for the last 7 weeks. Mm-hmm. The offense is humming. And you can say, oh, well, they do have weapons. That's what Josh is not. They don't, the Bills don't have an Amon-Ra St. Brown. They don't have the running back core. I think James Cook is very good, but Montgomery and Gibbs are cooking, and the O-line there is great.
Sam Laporta.
Yes, totally. But what I think about is in that Green Bay game, if you take Goff out, I do not think the offense is that good. I think they're good.
I totally agree with
you. But I do not think the offense is that good, and now all of a sudden you're giving Jordan Love another shot, and maybe it's a 3-point game.
He's just going to get hit. I think Goff will get hit the way Purdy got hit last year. It'll be look at how good and efficient that offense is.
And the OC.
And the offensive coordinator is everyone's favorite coach in the league.
That's why the award gets weird for me because it's like, what is the award? Is it the quarterback on the best offense? Is it the quarterback in the best, let's call it, system? Mm-hmm. The idea that Brock Purdy didn't win MVP last year, I think is absurd. If you're going straight by numbers.
Right, Brock Purdy's so efficient.
Brock Purdy's
and they
numbers
won more
last
than
year
anyone.
Were insane across the board.
Okay, let me ask you this. Where does Jaden Daniels fall in this?
So,
why wouldn't Daniels be getting more love for the MVP? I know, but it's kind of like Stroud last year, but his numbers are way better than Stroud last year.
I think he's better. He's been better so far than Stroud.
His numbers the first 4 or 5 weeks were actually not normal.
Agreed.
His efficiency, his completion rate.
Well, and who's his best weapon? McLaurin?
Yeah, who's a good wideout.
Good, but it's not.
I mean, and Detroit. Robinson Jr. has been good in the backfield, but he missed last week.
Hurt.
Totally. What this is what grinds my gears about the MVP is that to me now it's all about media narrative who wins.
Oh yeah,
that's
not really a most valuable player.
For sure.
It's just like what narrative about this player has been shaped, and now we can give him the MVP, and no one will be up in arms.
That's exactly. Well, look at the end of last year, and I think Lamar. He had a worthy case to win the MVP.
For sure.
For sure. But it almost got to a point. Remember, he had that big game, I want to say week 15. He didn't even dress in week 18. Didn't even play. But it was determined by the national media after one big game. It's like, it's over. It's Lamar's. And then it just became a formality.
Yes.
You had to vote for him or you were an idiot.
Here's my
you have to explain why you wouldn't vote for him.
Like with Lamar this year. And last night on Jay, I said my leading guy would be Lamar. And I have Goff was kind of my wild card here. Mm-hmm. But to your point about Josh Allen, like, I go back to Brock Purdy last year. What was the whole argument? Oh, Brock Purdy's got CMC. He's got Kyle Shanahan. He's got, Debo, Kittle, etc. Look at Lamar. You just stopped at Henry.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers.
Mark Andrews.
Isaiah
Likely's
been a stud.
Yeah.
Also, offensive line and run game, elite. They got a third down back in Justice Hill that is awesome.
Yes.
For a third down back, I'm saying. Henry is obviously the main guy. They just traded for Deontay Johnson. Rashad Bateman has made big plays when it matters. So I sit here and I'm like, and I wouldn't say Todd Monken is a bad, he's a very well-respected, not in the Shanahan family lineage, but this guy's not some bum OC.
Right.
So I get a little annoyed when you didn't do this. I'm saying that, like, last year with the Purdy stuff, when people were like, oh, Purdy, weapons. Oh, so-and-so. Like, everybody has weapons, maybe outside of Josh Allen. So maybe Allen is the MVP.
Well, it could be, man.
And I've got Amari Cooper now. He's got.
Well, that's another
gotta
thing.
get him
Cooper,
going.
although
Totally.
Cook took a week off last week, just easing into it a little bit. All right, Ravens Bengals tonight. Ravens laying 5.5.
I thought it was 6.5, Doogie. Can we confirm?
It's 5.5 on FanDuel, right, Doogie?
It just jumped to 6.5. Give it to me, Doogie.
Attaboy, Doogie.
What happened to the handshake, my guy?
Doogie, look at you. You're so compromised.
Doogie.
I'm in the middle. I've said this many times, man.
Oh, yeah?
Many
What is it?
Yeah.
5.5 or 6.5?
5.5
What-
for the Baltimore
5.5.
Ravens.
Doogie's calling it right here, right now. 5.5.
Listen, I'll be honest. I've got to go with the Bengals and the points. It's a divisional game. Joe Burrow has played a lot better. He's cooking right now. The speech after last week's game, I'm going to take out the TI and add the GI. Gut instinct here.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Straight gut instinct?
You sit here. Noodles.
Big spread.
Noodles.
No. I'm actually going to 100% agree with you. Here's why.
Lock it in.
Here's why, though. I've got to give Jonas a lot of love. I was going to say before you make your pick, you should let Jonas to the left of you.
Can I tell
weigh
you?
in.
Luke comes in here and he's like, "This pick is obvious," and Hayes is thinking, "This guy's going to pick Baltimore."
Yeah.
And we're both like, "No, dude, the Bengals."
You're taking the points. All right, good.
Come on.
Good.
The first
I
time
love
they
being on
played,
Baltimore
OT,
tonight.
field goal.
Yeah.
What would
That was in Cincinnati.
I could see this being another wild divisional game. That's why I got to take the points. But the only thing that jams me about this 5.5 or 6.5 is if we do go to OT.
Yes.
The loss is
It's
now on.
open.
The 6.5 because they don't kick the
Yeah,
extra
right? It's
point.
crazy.
I would have
It's
felt a
crazy.
lot better.
It is open.
If this gets to OT, I'm going to be locked into that coin flip.
I think it'll be a
The
good
coin
game.
flip might jam me.
I just wonder about this Bengals defense, man, on a short week on the road against this
Oh, it's going to be
offense.
tough.
Like
Burrow's gotta put up
Burrow's got to
35.
score a lot of points
Minimum
tonight.
35.
Yeah, and listen, he's capable of doing it. Chase is having a great year after a slow start. But I thought I said, is Orlando Brown not playing? I think he might be out tonight, which is pretty significant. Like the protection may be a bit on edge in Cincinnati tonight. So,
Well,
all
they
right.
just got to cover 5 points.
Yeah.
How
All
are
right. Lock
things
it in.
going of late? Are you guys trending?
Oh, we're
up?
cooking.
They're
We're cooking.
they're +3, man. At one
We're
point
cooking.
they were like 10
We
or
were
11
plus
up.
8. No, we were +8. I blew it. My fault. Blew it. They actually got to +1. They
got
like to
close.
accuse us of doing things they do. They hung the banner. I got a big speech out of this guy saying
was a
how
parade.
A
Yeah, there
parade.
was a
Thank
Hey,
you.
listen, we had a lot of people.
I love
Man
this
of
song.
integrity.
I love this
Yes.
song.
A lot of people buzzing
and
about
since then, they've choked that away. It's 3. It'll be 4 tonight. Sunday, I don't know if I could be more locked in.
Okay.
So we get this tonight, and it's, we're running away.
Hey, listen, it's the
Al's
we're-
brother
we're-
also went MIA. We don't know where the man
We
is.
haven't seen him or heard
He
from
got a
him in while.
1-game lead and quit.
It's concerning.
Maybe he is on location.
He's selling cards
Well,
somewhere.
He's probably at a card expo,
Yeah.
or he's on
Harry
a cruise.
Houdini.
Yeah, he's one or the other. There's 2 options with Al's brother. All right, picks in. You're locking in Bengals, taking the points. All right, good luck,
We're
man.
on it.
Go the Bengals.
Second
Yeah, let's
half.
go.
Starting
Noodles,
tonight.
I appreciate that comment. I feel way better now.
There you go.
You'll be
Noodles
fine.
is
You'll
on
be
board.
fine.
Pro Athlete Salute. There he is, Luke Willson. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Keegan Matheson coming up in about 10 minutes. Your boy Juan Soto is going to get paid a lot of money, Jonas.
Yeah.
You
He's going to get 700?
No. I think
600?
I'm not convinced he gets 600 on a total deal.
You know the teams who are in the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Noodles, what do you think?
I think he gets
550?
600. I think he gets 600 million. What's the term though? 10 years?
That's a good question.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's probably going to be 13 or 14.
So if he's going to get 600 million over 13 years, that's what I think.
Think about how much that is per year. Like that's just absurd amount of money. I know it's a rare scenario where he's this great. He's one of the 5 best players in the game. Not the best.
And he's not old.
But that's what makes it so unique is he's only 26 years old, I believe. So
just turned 26.
Yeah, I mean you're going to get like 6-7 years of like prime Juan Soto. And that is incredibly valuable. And he's proven he can do it in the playoffs, which goes a long way. But he's not like Ohtani and Judge are clearly better players than him right now.
Easy.
They are.
Okay.
They are better players.
They are.
Like Soto's a great player, but it's like Mookie Betts. Like they're both great players, but they're a step below.
Yeah, he's getting 13. He's going to get $600 million. That's $50 million a year times 12 years. That's what he's getting.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Which $50 million a year is like I don't even know what the Ohtani one is because it was deferred money and all. It's complicated, but Judge got 45 a year or something like that.
I don't think it wasn't in the 300s for 10 years or 12 years.
No, it wasn't that long. It was like an 8-year deal.
Okay,
at 350 or something like that. Because even the pitchers like Verlander and Scherzer were making over 40 when they signed with the Mets. All right, so Keegan will join us on where the Jays stand as the GM meetings continue down in Texas. We'll get to my list. It is a Thursday, and our best bet still to come as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.